Ashley, thank you so much for doing this and for joining us on Beginning is Now. So this is our first meditation and it's for our launch week. And I am notorious for struggling with meditation. So you are the absolute expert. Can you explain a little bit about yourself?
Sure, I will. First, by saying that I am not an expert in meditation, but I'm an expert in not being an expert, which is
I love that.
the whole point, right? In line with Beginning is Now, I think a lot of the beauty of meditation allows us to begin again, and it is a practice. So we're all in the practice together. I am a yoga teacher and a therapist. I'm a licensed creative arts therapist, which just means that I offer art making in addition to talk therapy to my clients as a way for self-exploration and self-healing. And I teach yoga in Brooklyn and previously also Manhattan before the pandemic, but I teach for the Shala. I'm actually at the Shala right now in Fort Greene, Brooklyn. And sometimes I teach in Montauk in the summers, but I try to weave a little bit of also meditation and mindfulness into my work with my individual therapy clients as well. So a little bit.
Okay, and so again, someone who's probably not going to be very good at this, but I should not set myself up to say that. So I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say I'm just going to be as present as possible. Why should I meditate? Right.
Well,
what would you say?
That's so funny. It's interesting. I mean, I came prepared with all the benefits of meditation to tell you today, but when you ask that question, it just reminds me that everyone is meditating for a different reason, right? And so we want to make it as personal to you as possible. But one basic thing I'll say is to calm the mind, that it is a place where we can take a pause from our busy lives and take some space for ourselves and just really start to focus the mind on one point, to calm it down. I mean, there's tons of benefits to meditation, and there's research, all sorts of research studies showing that when we're calming the central nervous system down, then our immune system is boosted and our sleep improves. And there's so many reasons to meditate. But one of the things I think just to make it tangible is when we sit to focus the mind on one place, we are aligning into the present moment, and we're aligning our body with our minds. Like oftentimes we think we're here, but I can sit here with you, and then as soon as we get quiet for a moment, my mind will probably be in the past, what I did for the weekend, or in the future, like what I'm having for lunch, and I'm not really present. And so the breath can anchor the mind into the body, which anchors us into the present moment, which is very beneficial for all of us.
Okay. And so it's interesting that you say that, because I think some of the things that I fear about meditation is I feel like I'm going to cry or something like that. That's the fact that came into my head because I'm a racer. My head is always going, I'm always a million places at once. And my forms of meditation have been in things like needle pointing or puzzling or, something like that.
Sure, yeah.
But the actual the connection to breath starts me feeling emotional. It just immediately gets up here emotional. And that's probably why I'm not afraid to sit with emotions in certain ways, but there's something really vulnerable about that quiet emotion that just, I'm going to unleash the hounds.
Well, if you cry, you cry. I mean, I've been practicing yoga for a very long time now. And I think the first 2 years I was practicing, I cried through the whole year in the end of the class. And it's interesting, right? It's the end of the class, once you've calmed your body and you're moving into a more meditative state, is a really true place, right? It's beyond all of the stuff that's on the surface of our minds. And that's okay to go to that place, but it is scary and it is emotional, and all of it is okay. It's we want to welcome.
The world doesn't necessarily fall apart when that happens.
No,
you actually get to just begin again in your day.
Right.
I mean,
Totally. Totally.
So for someone, obviously I'm just starting, tell me a little bit about what the meditation is that we're doing today.
Sure. Yeah. And just to also highlight on what you just said too, in the beginning of meditation, with folks that I work with, I try to make it pretty structured. So there isn't that looming, scary, big, open, quiet space. Like there is a little bit of a little support, right? We're just kind of gently starting to focus the mind. We're taking little pauses, real small, and then eventually that space widens and widens, and you might have that extra space at some point. But what we're going to do today is just a very simple breath meditation, and we are going to start with just a little body relaxation. And so I do a little almost sort of guided visualization in the beginning of my meditation sometimes to just allow the imagining of the relaxation that could happen. Hopefully we get there. And then we'll just do a little bit of work with noticing our breath. There's this really beautiful quote by Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a Vietnamese Buddhist teacher. And he says, "The breath is the royal road to the body." So we're just going to anchor ourselves back into the body, back into the present moment. And if the mind wanders, which it will, 100%, we're just going to keep coming back, keep beginning again, keep coming back.
Keep beginning again. Okay. So.
Can we do it?
Yeah. Start.
We cried. It's totally fine. Okay. All right. We ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So close your eyes, or don't close your eyes. So anything that I invite or suggest for you, you always have the freedom to do something otherwise. You want to make sure that you're honoring what feels right for you first and foremost. But for me, it's helpful to close my eyes because I get so easily distracted. So just take a minute to close your eyes, and all we're going to do right now is just to notice the quality of the breath. Like, is it fast? Is it slow? Is it warm? Is it cool? Just noticing it in and out of the nostrils. And then imagine, how sometimes on a cold winter day you can see the breath. You want to imagine that perhaps you could even just see the breath, that it's that noticeable. Or bringing our attention to it that much that we start to imagine it's like maybe like a cool breeze or soft color of choice. And just imagine as the breath moves into the nostrils on the inhale and out the nostrils on the exhale, that it has the ability to expand to all areas of the body. So we're just going to start to relax the areas of the body, softening the face, softening the jaw, inhaling that breath up to the crown of the head and back, wrapping around the skull, softening, almost like it's like a wave or like soft breeze washing over you, softening down the neck and the shoulders. You may even find yourself taking some nice deep breaths. It's totally fine. Just as you move the breath, the idea of the breath down to the heart and the lungs, down the torso, the belly, the abdomen, lower body into the seat, and down through the arms and legs, all the way into hands and feet and fingers and toes. And just, you can take a few nice deep cleansing breaths like this. And maybe even imagine the breath reaching any specific areas of the body where there might be some tension or some tightness. And then we're just going to let the mind rest on the breath. So again, if it's helpful to imagine the breath, like seeing it moving in and out of your nostrils, you can do that. If it's helpful to imagine the breath going back down into the body, anchoring you into your seat, that's also very nice. Just allowing the mind over and over again to return to the breath. And if it wanders, it wanders. No problem. It's designed to do that. The mind is designed to go back and forth and up and down and all around. And we're just bringing it back to the breath. Sometimes it's even nice to think of the breath like a little boat or a cradle where we can rest the mind. Just give it a rest, even if it's for like one moment, 1 second. And the mind will wander and we bring it back to the breath. You can even imagine on the inhale and the exhale, just some sort of phrase like inhaling let and exhaling go. Or something really as simple as on the inhale, just imagining saying in your mind, breathing in, and on the exhale, breathing out. That's all we're doing in this moment, and that's all we need to do in this moment is breathe in and breathe out. And begin again. Right? Even just that phrase. Inhale, begin. Exhale again. And just take one more moment here. I'm just going to let us have one moment of quiet. Whatever happens, happens. And if the mind wanders, bring it back to the breath. Anchor that breath again into any place in the body you want to soften, just one little layer deeper. And then just take a nice few deep breaths as you start to return back to the space that we began in. And just start to notice how the body feels. And whenever you're ready, you can just gently begin to open your eyes or come back into this space. How do you feel?
I feel lighter. It's funny because my brain kept going to the outside noises, like construction and recycling, and then I would go back to the breath. And then, but before, when I first started, my breath was like, okay, I think I was probably going through Lamaze. And then I forgot about breathing. And then my mind went to some other things that were distraction. Then it came back to breathing. By the end of it, my breathing was on a much more even intake output. When I thought about it, I was forcing it too much. But then when I stopped thinking about it, like it's almost like I had to go between my breath and my mind, my breath and my mind, my breath and my mind, and then it started to just kind of go together.
That, I mean, I love that. Thanks for sharing that, because it really is, I think when we try too hard, it's like we're too tense in the meditation. And the point is to almost to like let ourselves fully go, right? Like,
which is the hardest thing in the world to do, like the hardest.
Yeah.
Really let go. Like we're not taught to do that.
No, not at all. And I think that's really most of my really all my lovely teachers, all the best, I think, meditation teachers will tell you, it's really about being compassionate with yourself and being okay with, allowing ourselves to take as much time as we need to come back, right? Like Sharon Salzberg is this wonderful meditation teacher, and she says, like, the magic moment is when we return back. It's not having like this, like, oh, I could just remain focused for 30 minutes. It's the like, oh, I came back.
So you don't get lost. Do you know what I mean? Like you don't, because there's this thing that goes like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this for fear of failing, right? Which doesn't seem like it's very in keeping with meditation. And then the self-judgment and then fear that I'm not going to be able to get there, whatever that thing is that everybody tells me I'm supposed to feel. And then you put some value on that. And then you know what I mean? Like there's so many things that really are just designed to get in the way of the actual just doing of it.
Right. And that's the thing. Like that's all like the storylines of our minds, right? And just like that's what we're trying to get to just work with. It's not about like eliminating them. It's just like leaning into them and getting to know them and kind of being like gentle and kind of even funny about like, oh yeah, like I was thinking about like the plate of pasta I'm going to have tonight for like half of my meditation. Okay, fine. Like that's where I was today, and kind of working with.
I was thinking of the shot of tequila I was going to have. I'm just saying, there lies the difference of you and me. Well, there it is.
No, I mean, listen, like, there's going to be a glass of wine with the pasta too, but yeah, no, I mean, whatever it is, it's also a way to get to know ourselves. Like, what's interesting about what I'm hearing from you is you're really honest about yourself, and it's like, wherever we go, there we are. And the way in which we approach our meditation practice is very often like the way we're approaching other things in life, relationships, work, everything, right? So, and it's going to be different every day. Like some days we're going to be really driven and I need to do it right. And then other days we might be like, oh, I don't feel like doing it at all. And I'm just going to like piece out of my meditation and just like think about Netflix and, whatever. It's fine. It's all part of it, right? Like,
the white knuckling it, I think, is the thing that, is I'm like 10 and 2 when I drive, because that's what the book said. And that the tighter I hold, the more in control I am. And this is like the complete, not inverse, but this is the looser the grip, the more sort of malleable it all becomes. There's a sort of not a metaphor, but they say if you ever get stuck in seaweed, like underneath the water, if you get tied up, right, you get hooked or somehow caught, that, my brain goes, we'll just rip it apart and fight out of it. And they say if you stay really still, the way the ocean moves, the seaweed will actually loosen up and you can kind of float to the surface. Now, that's a pretty beautiful metaphor. I'm sure I'm panicking and gulping water, but just the idea of letting it flow, right. Those words have been so a part of so much, and they can be scary to some people, myself included. But this is so important, I think, for people to do what you're saying, because this is really designed for people who don't meditate, so Ashley, that's what I'm hoping as the conduit, you're the expert. I'm the conduit, non-expert, but this idea that the taking the fear out of it and just sort of saying it's all okay. I didn't fail because I was listening to recycling going into a bag.
Yeah.
But that all of a sudden I was like, what the recycling? Why did I have to recycle? And then I was like, no, there is a place for recycling and it's happening now. And so it's sort of, not this idea of not having to be perfect is like, poof,
and that's just real. Like there's noise all around us, right? And I love actually outside noise because it gives us a chance to practice coming back from the inside noise, which for me is much worse than my outside noise, like my inside noise in my head. Right? And so it's like, it's just a reminder that like, this is life and it's all a process, but I love the seaweed. I hope you don't, I want to borrow that example. It's so
Please do. My God, that would be an honor. And it's not from me, but
it's really about surrender, right?
Yeah.
Like you're placing the effort and then you just surrender and you're like, okay, I'm going to work on myself because that's the only thing I can work on. I can't change the fact that I'm stuck in seaweed in this moment, but I can get still. And it's how we relate to the moment. And that is the power of meditation. It's how we relate.
And this is something you can do every day, right? Like you can do 5 minutes of something every day. I mean, if you sort of extrapolate what we did, but I just want to thank you so much for coming on to Beginning Is Now and introducing meditation to those who don't meditate, so God, that's really wonderful. Thank you. Beyond. And gosh, join us next time where we can begin again.
We'll do it again and we'll just get a little bit more space. Thank you so much, Brooke.
Perfect. Thank you, Ashley.